We would like to welcome Professor Rajaraman sir to raise his question. Over to you, sir. Kindly unmute and ask your question. Professor Rajaraman has raised his hand. Sir, kindly unmute and ask. Looks like there is some technical problem. Meanwhile, can anyone also share the feedback on the open forum?
Yes, good evening, sir. Rajaraman.
Good evening, sir. Please go ahead.
Rajaraman from Chennai, Pavanangal, sir.
Vargalam, sir. Please go ahead.
Very informative and knowledgeable session this evening. Be blessed with divine. Vargalam.
Vargalam, sir. Please proceed. Sir, please proceed. You're live.
Go to the next questioner.
Okay. I don't see any raise button, but would like to request some. Yeah, I could see one more. Arulnithi Partha from Melbourne. Kindly unmute and raise your question, please.
Be blessed by the divine. It's a really very useful, informative presentation here. From the presentation that brain neuro physiology, how does it help to cure patients like coma or brain tumor? Like we are in spirituality, like we are doing blessings through Wi-Fi method to recover from the illness, but how these signs help to cure diseases in that way. Another question, like we are studying Swamiji concept, the evolutionary process, the same thing clearly explained in scientific way. So the mankind, the unconditional love to be blossom in the reality of community, one has to understand oneself. Who am I? Then understand the consciousness, how it is exist in the external world. Then only it is possible. That's why we are doing our practices, like meditation practices, self-realization practices. Is it possible in the future by generation in the evolution, without doing all these practices, the mankind live in the universe in the future with peace, unconditional love? That is second question. Thank you, sir. Be blessed by the divine.
Technologies like Neuralink could perhaps be applicable for diagnosis. Early diagnosis will save people. For instance, cancer can be growing in anybody's body at any given point of time, but may get diagnosed after it has reached an advanced stage. For instance, my mother-in-law, she had lymphoma cancer, and lymphoma got detected when the cancer reached stage 4, which is a fairly advanced stage. But the brain would have already detected these cancerous growing cells and would have created certain alternative bloodstream paths or signal paths or sensory paths that could make these cells perhaps grow extraordinarily faster or larger. So it is, for instance, another application of this, just to give you an analogy for you to understand, the brain senses the upcoming accident a fraction of a second or a second or two before the actual realization in our conscious mind that there is going to be accident, so therefore let us brake or let us avoid that accident. So that 1 second or half a second gap could sometimes save our lives. Likewise, early detection of diseases or early detection of blood, heat, air, magnetic circulation, life force circulation in any part of the body could be life saving. So Neuralink kind of technology will be applicable for diagnosis. I'm not too sure if it can be used for cure though, because it doesn't really do anything other than just diagnose, other than just understands the signals coming from neurons. So I think it's too early to talk about cure through these kind of devices. Your second question is, how can peace be possible? There's only one way peace is possible: when we get rid of all our expectations. Expectations come because we are attached. Attachment comes because we have ego. So ego, when it goes away from us, illusions will go away from us. So in ego and illusions vanish from us, and there will be no expectation, leading to absolute peace. And this is possible only when the mind focuses on something larger than itself. If we are constantly entangled and living in that entanglement of bodily sensations or the attachments to power and materials, then we will never be able to remain peaceful in our life. Even if one man is not peaceful, then he will have the power to destroy the peace of others in the society. So there's only one way by which you can get rid of expectations, get rid of illusions, get rid of ego, and therefore get rid of karma, sin imprints in your life, is through 3 simple methods of constantly doing good and not hurting anyone. Then taking specific superimposed resolutions in your mind, not to do a particular action that will cause harm for you or others now or in the future, physically or mentally. And 3, through meditation. So through expiation and superimposition, neutralization, you can get rid of all the 3 impurities in the soul. And this is the gift given to us by our Guru, Yogiraj Sri Vethathiri Maharishi, in the way of introspection, meditation, exercises, and Kayakalpa Yoga, that leads us towards that complete awareness that you and I are one and the same. In just characterization, we appear different. So we have to have a single goal of working towards and realizing by inner vision the true state of who we are. Only then there can be peace that is possible.
Thank you, sir. All Mudan, be blessed by the divine.
We now have Balachinder sir on to raise a question. Please unmute yourself and raise a question, sir.
Yes, very good presentation by Krish Murali Eswar. A question which has been bothering is that Swamiji generally uses the word mind and consciousness. He doesn't use the word brain very often. Say in Tamil also, he says manam, arivu, perarivu. Ana moola, though we talk so much, scientists have been talking about so much about brain, Swamiji has been using the word mind. So, what is the connection between mind, thought, brain, and consciousness?
So without the brain, my understanding, sir, I'm sure your understanding will be far superior to mine. But my understanding is this: that brain is the functional center of what we call as mind, which is nothing but a collection of brain actions, which are essentially, cognition, recognition, action, sensing, motivation, work, discrimination, superimposition, introspection, meditation, every single thing that we like to put as a verb that defines the function of the mind essentially originates or functions in the seat of consciousness, which is the brain. So without the brain, the functioning of the mind becomes slightly difficult in the order of nature. So the neuron cells are the physical instruments, like an engine, a motor, that allows the inner consciousness to use this motor power, to use this equipment, the instrument, to give out certain thought waves, and those thought waves could motivate us to act on it, and therefore deeds and words come into play, and which then give us the appropriate results according to time, place, and motivation, and the object of contact, which we then feel as pain or pleasure or peace or ecstasy. Even the perception of peace, pain, pleasure, ecstasy has to happen in the functional center of the brain. So the brain needs to be functioning reasonably well for the mind to actually perceive things. But the consciousness is everywhere from the way Swamiji has defined it. Because this particular conference triggered me to go a little deeper into the brain side of the science rather than the mind side of the science, I went deeper into that and connected it with consciousness. So I hope I did justice to the topic. But if the topic had been about mind and consciousness, then the realm of that particular discussion leads us to a completely different dimension of discussion, where it talks about the evolution of the mind, not the evolution of intelligence or intellectual capacity as defined by scientists as the functional measure of the capacity of the brain itself. So to put the long story short, to summarize what I understand as the combination of the connection between the mind, the thoughts, and the brain, and the consciousness, consciousness is everywhere, but the consciousness uses the brain as its functional center, or the seat of consciousness is the brain, which then gives out certain functional waves, which we call as thought waves, which then are collectively called as the group of these thoughts, a group of these waves are called as the mind. But the mind as a subject, of course, is a lot deeper than just this simpleton way of saying it. I'm maybe ignorant in defining it in a little better way, but I'm sure you can define it a lot clearer and better than me. Thank you, sir, for asking this question. Be blessed.
It's a very good explanation. Because a lot of people get confused about it, and it's very nice that you explained it very nicely. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. We'll now move on to the next participant. Kanan, sir, can you please unmute and raise a question?
Good evening to everybody and the senior professor, Krish Murali Eswar. Thank you for your, this is like it enlightened us in a different perspective of Vethathirian. My question is, like you mentioned that brain and consciousness, brain is the functional center of the consciousness. Actually, for me, my understanding is like brain is, what do you call, is a link, and it helps in if you link it to a computer. Okay, the inlet, outlet, output devices, these are all 5 sensory organs, and the brain is like a mediator in between, and it controls and gains it. My question is like the consciousness, like if brain dies, okay, even still the body or everything is surviving. Okay, if the heredity and what do you call the genetic center, where lies the all the information of the lives or the forefathers and about the universe. Everything lies in the genetic center. This is as per our Maharishi's Vethathirian. So, like, how is the link between that? Because the brain for me is as a part, as an organ, and it will die. But the pure or the all the information will be there in the genetic center, which even the body is dies, it will be keep on available as energy. So the brain and consciousness, little bit I was confused because the true consciousness, the link exists between the what do you call the genetic center, and brains act as a what do you call as organ through which the mind waves acts as a thought, and when it takes informations through the bodily like 5 sensory organs, it once again experiences, and it once again what you call imprint into the genetic center. This is my understanding. Just I want to have a clarification.
You understood it clearly well. Actually, you explained it reasonably well. Your question itself has the answer in it, and you explained it really, very well. You experience through your sensory organs, the touch, the taste, the smell, the light, and the sound gets imprinted first in the brain cells as memory, then in the biomagnetism, then even in the body cells. There are cell memories. For instance, Madurai Mani Iyengar, for instance, Madurai Krishna Iyengar, for instance, he will play mridangam just out of memory. I mean, he doesn't have to think at all. It's there in his hands. Mozart can play his instrument without even thinking. It just flows through his fingers. So likewise, many people who are in the flow, you should read the book called as The Flow, that talks about how the body cells are imprinting memory. And this is possible only because the magnetism condenses everything and puts it into the cells. So it also, according to our Swamiji, condenses the same experience down into an imprint into the genetic center. But when the frequency matches, this imprint that we have already stored in the genetic center expands and clashes, or is shown as a memory or a vision inside us when it hits the brain. When it hits the brain, the magnetic wave expands in the brain. It is seen as internal memory or recalled as memory. For instance, we may have forgotten our keys somewhere, but when the frequency matches exactly that particular frequency in which we have stored that particular location in the memory, then we are able to recall and we are able to collect that key and do our job. So this is an example of how the genetic center plays a significant role in condensing every single experience and storing it. And this, since this whole universe is a single unified force, it is logical to also see that if you tune your mind to a particular human being, then whatever happens to that human being is perceived by our genetic center and shown as intuition to us. Ask your mother, for instance. Ask your wife if you have a child, and she will tell you that there is a special bond between the mother and the child. If anything is going to happen to the child, or anything has happened to the child, the first person who comes to know of it is the mother through intuition. So it may have happened to you also. It has happened to me several times. It may have happened amongst many Sky professors and many Sky practitioners in our system as well. Intuition plays a significant role because there is a wireless connection between your genetic center and my genetic center. So you think of me and you bless me, I get the benefit. I bless you, you get the benefit. So I think you've done a reasonably good job of saying that the genetic center sends waves which are then clashing with the brain cells, or felt as sensations, or seen as inner visions, which then motivate us to say or act accordingly.
Thank you, sir. We just have the next aspirant again coming back, Professor Radharaman. Kindly unmute and please ask your question, please.
Good evening, sir. Be blessed with divine.
Please proceed, sir. Good.
Oh, I am from Chennai, Parandangal. My name is Raja Raman. Consciousness 360 degrees is informative and knowledgeable session. My question is, we usually talk about mentally retarded children unless some human being are insane or having lunacy. Please differentiate what is retardedness of the mind or lunacy. Sir.
Sir, I am not an expert in this space at all. I will let Dr. Rabindranath maybe explain this, please.
Thank you, sir. I think it's time for us to go on to the next session. I mean, next event, the vote of thanks. So I would like to invite Senior Professor Dr. Rabindranath Ji, the Director of R&D Department of World Community Service Center, to deliver the vote of thanks and maybe answer the questions also what has been left out by Professor Rajaram. Over to you, Doctor.
Okay. Thank you very much. My job is to thank everybody, and I thank everyone for taking this session in such a appreciable, superb way that this presentation is unique, and our people are many of them may be finding it difficult to follow and understand. But everything has been presented in a lucid way. Now, before going to this vote of thanks, let me answer the question shunted from our main speaker.
Professor
This
Rajaram.
Professor Rajaram's question to Dr. Krish Murali, transferred to me, and see that mental retardation, as the word means, there is the structural brain defect, changes are there, which limit the performance of the individual. Lunacy, the structure is more or less preserved to the possible extent of study, and the function only is affected. It is more psychological, and the retardation process is more physical, and this differentiate the lunacy and the psychological problems from the structural problems of growth retardation and the autism children and all. And still, both are amenable for treatment, and the modern science and the spiritual science are showing the results of how to manage these problems in both these ways. The fundamental thing to understand is consciousness. We separate the consciousness from divinity and see. Swamiji has defined divinity, totality, as plenum, force, consciousness, and time. This is only for our understanding, and not there are actual divisions. In medicine, we have surgery, medicine, gynecology, psychiatry, like this. These differences, these branches are all functioning in the human being, and they are all interconnected. And for our convenience of understanding and tackling the problems, we have divided them into medical, surgical, obstetrical, and psychiatrical. Whereas all of them will be occurring in the same human being. And the common approach to all these problems is important, whatever may be the speciality in which he is being treated. In the same way, when we take the consciousness, it is not different from the force, almighty, this, and it is the same inexhaustible resource. So when you put all these things together and understand, I think it will be very difficult. We have not been accustomed to such understanding. And when we reach that level, we are all working at the level of the different organs and different diseases, problems, which is quite peripheral. As you go deep into it, these become cells, neurons, and all the cells. And whatever may be the type of cell in the body, they have a common pattern of survival, growth, and death. In the same way, here, the initial stock force is the power in consciousness, and that is manifesting as the character of the individual, the capabilities of the mind, the capabilities of the organs, everything. So, as we go to the source, to understand consciousness, we have to go down from beta to alpha, and then to theta, and then to delta. And only in the delta level, we will be able to understand consciousness and divinity. Before that, I think we may not be able to. And whatever we say, it may not be complete also. So it is the divine knowledge, all the terms, this unified force, and all these things have been expressed by Swamiji in Vethathirian. And the genetic center and the brain, he has compared the activities of the two. The imprints he has analyzed, and he has given the mechanism of the development of the imprints and the storage of the imprints in the genetic center. So it is a vast subject, and we have taken part by part. Mind and consciousness is one thing, brain and consciousness is another thing. And now we are progressing, and that's why we have such a lengthy 20 weeks of the deliberations on consciousness. And we have to continue our approach and endeavors to understand the consciousness. And there is a new department that has been created in NIMHANS, which is a Center for Consciousness. And fortunately, by the grace of Maharishi, we have been interacting with that department of consciousness for the past 2 years, even before the actual functioning, starting of the department. We have been associated with this in its formative stage itself. And the main idea of taking up consciousness for our deliberations, for our thinking process, analytical process, is to present this material to NIMHANS, your Department of Consciousness, so that they take it up for research. And so far, the lectures are going on in a nice way, appreciable way. And today's deliberation is on the brain and consciousness. And Krish Murali has taken up this difficult job in an easy way by compiling the media presentations, which are understandable. These videos explain lot of messages, materials in a short time, which would have been difficult if he go on with a simple lecture. And I thank him for doing this in such a nice way. And I thank the chairpersons and visiting persons. Dr. Vijay Gupta, we have been trying very hard to locate him and communicate with him. But his love for Maharishi is so great that he has joined the event, even though we were not definite about his participation, even at the time of beginning of the event. And Prasad Kapatla has agreed, who has been trying to locate Gupta for the last 3-4 days. And anyway, we are happy to have them, blessed to have them with us, and I thank them both for their votes. And the concluding speech given by Karthik in a lucid way, he is a great admirer of the speaker, and that's why I asked him to sum up, and he did it very nicely. Thank you very much, Mr. Karthik. And the person who came for meditation, and she did well, I thank her. And the new role taken up by Sekar, Bahrain Sekar, he did it nicely, even though he was not introduced about the speakers and their data and all. It was totally new, but this shows his capacity to rise up to the occasion. I thank him very well. I thank all the participants and request them to give their feedback in the prescribed form so that we can get benefited out of your feedbacks. And that will, I'm sure, will shape the future events. And I thank one and all. And now let us conclude with a word universal prayer.
A small announcement. Can I just go ahead, sir?
Take it.
Yeah, I would like to add a few more. Thank you, sir. Thank you for the nice word of thanks. And it's been an honor and pleasure to be of service to you. And thanks for giving an opportunity. May I now request all the participants to continue, join us. The next week is going to be on 13th February 2021. And please add next week, the speaker details will be announced to you in a short while. You can watch and subscribe Consciousness 360 videos in the YouTube channel Vethathirian Gurukulam and Facebook page Vethathiri Maharishi Kundalini Yoga. I would request you to spread this word to all our Sky friends across the globe, and let us all participate and make this event as a glorious, successful event in all the forthcoming sessions to come over. May we seek the blessings of Almighty and Guru Yogiraj Vethathiri Maharishi to be with us and guide us always. See you all next week. Till then, stay safe and be blessed by the divine. World Holomadan. We'll now move on to the world peace prayer. World Holomadan.
Just wait. We will see what is the next one right now. Let me tell you, these
உலகமெல்லாம் பருவமழை ஒத்தபடி பருவமழை ஒத்தபடி பெய்யட்டும். உழவரெல்லாம் தானியத்தை உவப்புடனே பெருக்கட்டும். பல தொழில்கள் புரிகின்ற பாட்டாளி உயரட்டும். பகுத்துணர்வில் தொகுத்துணர்வு பண்பாட்டை உயர்த்தட்டும். உலகமெல்லாம் பருவமழை ஒத்தபடி பெய்யட்டும். கலகங்கள் போட்டி பகை கடந்து ஆட்சி நடக்கட்டும். கல்லாமை கடன் வறுமை களங்கங்கள் மறையட்டும். கலகங்கள் போட்டி பகை கடந்தாட்சி நடக்கட்டும். கல்லாமை கடன் வறுமை களங்கங்கள் மறையட்டும். நலவாழ்வை அளிக்கும் மெய்ஞான ஒளி வீசட்டும். நலவாழ்வை அளிக்கும் மெய்ஞான ஒளி வீசட்டும். நம் கடமை அறவாழ்வின் நாட்டத்தே சிறக்கட்டும். 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 வாழ்க வையகம் வாழ்க வளமுடன் வாழ்க வையகம் வாழ்க வளமுடன் வாழ்க வையகம் வாழ்க வளமுடன் வாழ்க வையகம் வாழ்க வளமுடன்.
I guess Dr. Gupta ji would like to say something. Please, I think.
நீங்களும் பேசுறீங்க. Dr. Gupta ji.
Please unmute.
Dr. Gupta ji, hope you are still able to hear me.
We enjoyed this session and appreciate you inviting us. So we're very grateful.
Hey, Vijay, are we still on? Vijay?
Dr. Vijay Gupta and respected Indra Gupta, வாழ்க வளமுடன். Thank you very much for your participation. I will contact you again after the meeting. Hello.
நன்றி ஐயா, வாழ்க வளமுடன்.
Hello. It was not open.
No, I have unmuted that.
Is Dr. Rabindranath there?
Yes, Dr. G is there. I think you can carry on, please.
Well, This is beautiful. What Professor Krish shared, it is to the point.